Welcome to the Sample Chapter Podcast, the show where authors read a sample chapter from one of their books. Here's your host, Jason A. Meiske.
Hello, Sample Chapter listeners, and welcome to episode 278 of the show. Hey, this particular episode is coming to you from the Gulf of Alaska. That's right, I am way out to sea right now in the far north, approaching Alaska as we speak. So hopefully I can get this episode out on time, but internet, as you can imagine, coming over the satellite is spotty at best. So I'm going to do my best to get this out on time. And if not, it could be a day late, but we'll see what happens. Meanwhile, man, what an episode I got for you this week. Sam Stone is returning. Last week we had a great interview, great conversation with him, learning all about his background as a 30-year Texas police officer, what got him interested in writing and how he writes, and so much more. Be sure to click that link in the show notes so that you can hear more about last week's episode with that. But today we're going to be hearing from his book, Reaper, a Task Force Raven thriller. And it's a great story. It's it's very riveting. It's tense. It's nightmarish almost. It's one of those stories where you're like, oh my gosh, is this really going to happen? Is it really going to happen? They're going to stop it, right? They're going to stop it. Are they going to stop it? And then I can't tell you what happens because it's gonna throw you. But it definitely sets the stage and makes you want to find out more. So how about without any further ado, why don't we go ahead and just get on over to that reading with Sam Stone from Reaper, a Task Force Raven thriller, right after a word from the writers of Warrensburg.
Calling all wordsmiths and storytelling aficionados. Mark your calendars for June 21st, 2025, as the Writers of Warrensburg host their annual Writers' Workshop at the Trails Regional Library in Warrensburg, Missouri. This full-day event, running from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., promises a blend of inspiration, education, and community for writers of all levels. Some workshop highlights are the dynamic presentations. Gain insights from seasoned professionals such as Dayton Ward and Kevin Dillmore discuss the art of collaborative writing across various media. Sally Bernethy, USA Today, best-selling author, shares her expertise on editing manuscripts to perfection. Stan C. Smith explores the intersection of writing and AI, offering strategies for ethical and effective integration. Networking opportunities include engaging in a multi-author Q&A session, connect with fellow writers, editors, and publishers who share your passion. And don't forget to participate in an open-to-public, multi-author public book signing from 3 to 4 p.m. Registration is $40, covering all sessions and refreshments. Spaces are limited to 35 participants, so secure your spot by June 15th or before slots fill up. For more details and to register, visit writersofwsbg.weebly.com. Don't miss this opportunity to elevate your writing journey. Join us for a day of creativity, learning, and literary camaraderie.
Hello, Sample Chapter listeners. Hey, we are back once again with Sam Stone, and he is about to entertain us with a sample reading from Reaper, a Task Force Raven thriller. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the floor over to our guest, Sam Stone.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate the opportunity again. I enjoyed being on the pod last week, and I thank you for the opportunity to read a sample chapter from my book, Reaper, a Task Force Raven thriller. In it, we follow Task Force Raven with Major Jake Baylor at the head, a counterterror unit for the state of Texas, as they are combating and investigating and chasing a group of terrorists who have infiltrated the southern border into the state of Texas. And the chapter I'm going to read for you is chapter 11 from the book. I wanted to kind of have a chapter with a little action in it and give you, the readers, a taste of what they can expect from this novel. This is just one piece of it. And we'll start off with chapter 11, and this chapter is called Sangre in el agua. That's blood in the water. Quote, terrorism is contempt for human dignity, end quote. Kjell Magne Bondevik. San Antonio Riverwalk, Friday, 20:45 hours. The beautiful jeweled ribbon of the San Antonio River winds through the downtown area, creating a tourist paradise of shops, bars, and restaurants that draw over 14 million people annually. The picturesque Mexican-European Texas melting pot of cultures is especially crowded on these warm summer weekend nights. It seems that all of the city's population of 1.5 million, as well as the thousands of tourists in town to visit the Alamo, Six Flags, and SeaWorld, among other attractions, converge on the downtown entertainment district, making it one of the most densely congested entertainment pedestrian areas in the nation. The sun had barely set an hour ago, leaving a purple glow on the western horizon, while the rest of the sky had darkened to deep indigo. String lights hanging over the walkways reflected off the slow-moving water, creating a kaleidoscope of colors that danced with each ripple. The mixed scents of Tex-Mex cuisine, cold beer, mountain laurel, and bougainvilleas mingled in the humid air, while a distant mariachi band competed with a piano player's rendition of Sweet Caroline coming from one of the packed bars. Tourists and locals alike moved in a steady stream along the narrow stone pathways, pausing to take photos against the backdrop of colorful umbrellas and rustic stonework. College students from the University of Texas, Texas State University, UTSA, and Trinity University t-shirts clustered around outdoor tables, their laughter punctuating the ambient noise. Military personnel from nearby bases enjoyed their weekend liberty, easily identifiable by their high and tight haircuts and confident bearing even in civilian clothes. The wait staff at Casa Rio's outdoor dining area, dressed in their iconic brightly colored Mexican dresses, deftly navigated the crowds with trays of sizzling fajitas and frozen margaritas in the establishment's trademark colorful glasses. A San Antonio Police Department bicycle patrol, 2 officers in dark blue shorts and moisture-wicking polos, weaved expertly through the crowds. Officer Miguel Salazar, a 10-year veteran of the department, scanned the throngs with practiced precision, his eyes moving constantly as they had during his 2 tours in Afghanistan before joining the force. His partner, Officer Rachel Klein, a former competitive cyclist turned cop, kept pace beside him, their bikes sometimes almost touching as they navigated the narrow passages. They chatted casually with tourists, posed for occasional photos, and maintained a reassuring presence that most visitors interpreted as routine crowd management rather than it had become in the post-9/11 era. "Hey, did you see the Rangers game last night?" Salazar asked, nodding to a group of college students who raised their beer glasses in greeting. "No, I was helping my sister with wedding planning," Klein replied, waving to a family with small children. "What was the score?" 6-2. They slapped the ball all over the yard. Salazar's casual conversation belied his constant situational awareness, a habit that had kept him alive during combat and urban patrols in Kandahar. As the officers rolled past a group of men standing near Casa Rio, Salazar's instincts briefly triggered. Something about their body language seemed off. Too rigid, too focused amidst the relaxed revelry. For half a second, he considered stopping, asking a casual question, establishing contact. Then a toddler darted into the path of his bike, forcing him to swerve, and the moment passed. The officers continued their patrol, moving further along the Riverwalk, away from what his subconscious had flagged as potential trouble. "Shit, that was close," Klein said, referring to the near collision with the child. "Yeah," Salazar replied, his mind already circling back to normal patrol concerns. Parents need to keep a closer eye on their kids in this crowd. At a wrought iron table outside of Dirty Nellie's Irish pub, the Hoffman family from Omaha celebrated their daughter Megan's acceptance to Trinity University. Jim Hoffman raised his pint of Guinness and a toast, his wife Karen capturing the moment on her iPhone. Their 18-year-old daughter blushed at the attention. Her brother Dylan, 16, rolling his eyes at the sentimentality while secretly pleased for his sister. "To Megan, Trinity's going to be lucky to have you," Jim said, his voice carrying the Midwestern warmth that had made him a successful insurance broker. 4 years in this beautiful city. I'm already planning our visits." "Dad, stop," Megan protested, though she couldn't suppress her smile. "You're embarrassing me." "That's literally his job," Dylan quipped, taking a sip of his Coke. Karen lowered her phone, satisfaction evident in her expression at having captured the family moment. "We should get a frame for this one," she said, showing them the photo. "Maybe something with the Trinity colors?" None of them noticed the young man standing a few feet away, watching their happiness with hollow eyes. None of them would realize that the last photograph of their family would be taken by a passing tourist, capturing them in the background of a casual vacation snap just seconds before everything changed. As the throngs enjoyed the evening, laughing, smiling, eating, drinking, and generally celebrating another week, none knew the horror about to be visited on them. Few, if any, took any real notice of the two groups of dark-skinned men who descended from the street level down the Spanish-style steps to the Paseo del Rio, the Riverwalk. San Antonio had evolved into a cosmopolitan metropolis, the seventh largest city in the United States, where diverse populations were commonplace. This was especially true in what locals probably called Military City, USA, a nickname earned from Joint Base San Antonio's sprawling presence, which encompassed Lackland and Randolph Air Force bases, Camp Bullis, and Fort Sam Houston, home to U.S. Army North Command headquarters. These men, however, were not here to party or enjoy the evening. These men had another objective altogether. The two groups separated, with three of the men approaching and loitering with the large groups of patrons outside Dirty Nellie's. The rollicking piano bar hosted a spillover crowd, including the Hoffmans. Adjacent to the bar was a densely crowded queue area for the fleet of tourist Rio taxis that ferried people up and down the river. The second group of three mingled with the horde outside Casa Rio, Boudreaux's, and the Republic of Texas restaurant and bar. There were easily thousands of people tightly packed around the men, and between the two terror groups' positions a few hundred yards apart. The terrorist controller, Ashball, found his observation post in the lounge area of the sixth-floor open-air lounge of the Hilton Palacio del Rio, overlooking large stretches of the river. He sipped slowly from a glass of water, his eyes constantly scanning the scene below through tactical Steiner 8x32 binoculars that he periodically raised to his face, masking the motion as checking something on his smartphone to avoid drawing attention. His Casio G-Shock's countdown timer showed less than 15 minutes remaining. The balcony provided him perfect situational awareness, close enough to maintain visual contact with his operatives, but far enough to escape the immediate chaos that would follow. Ashball's left hand absently traced the scarred flesh of his right, a roadmap of pain from the American Fatima and their twin daughters as they slept in their home outside Raqqa. He had been away that night, meeting with local cell leaders in a nearby village. When he returned, there was nothing left to bury, just scorched concrete and unidentifiable fragments. American intelligence had been after a mid-level ISIS commander who occasionally used the building next door. The drone's Hellfire missile had struck with typical American precision, hitting exactly the wrong target. That was 5 years ago. Ashball had been a moderate once, a university-educated engineer who'd been drawn to ISIS not by religious extremism, but by the promise of order amidst Syria's chaos. After the strike, however, he'd become al-Hasid's most devoted disciple, the technical expert who turned the Reaper's visionary plans into operational reality. Yet lately, doubt had begun to creep in. Al-Hasid's grandiose scheme seemed increasingly disconnected from tactical reality, his obsession with complex multi-stage operations needlessly risky. Tonight's attack, Ashball's design, of course, executed with brutal simplicity, would demonstrate what could be accomplished with a straightforward approach. Perhaps then, Al-Hasid would recognize where the movement's top true strength lay. The six men positioned themselves strategically among the crowds, their outward calm belying the violent tempest within. Each felt the weight of the vest against his skin, the cold steel bearings and C4 putty pressing into flesh that would soon be obliterated. Their heartbeats quickened, but their hands remained steady, rehearsed movements carrying them through final preparations almost unconsciously. Hamza, the youngest at 23, positioned himself near the entrance to Dirty Nellie's, where a bachelor party group spilled into the walkway. He'd memorized the Quran by age 12, but had never fired a weapon until 3 years ago. Now he stood with his thumbs hovering near the trigger mechanism sewn into his left sleeve, watching American women in summer dresses laugh and take selfies. His Nike athletic shirt concealed the crude but effective vest beneath. its bulk disguised by a deliberately loose fit. The steel ball bearings pressed uncomfortably against his ribs with each breath. 3 years earlier, Hamza had been a pre-med student at the University of Damascus. His life planned out in meticulous detail. Medical school, then a residency, then joining his uncle's practice in comfortable suburb. The war had changed everything. Government forces had raided his campus, arresting dozens of students suspected of opposition sympathies. Hamza, whose only political activity had been attending a single peaceful protest, found himself in prison and tortured for 6 months. Upon his release, secured by his family's life savings paid as bribes, he discovered his parents had been killed in a government bombardment of their neighborhood. With nothing left, he had drifted toward the only group offering both protection and purpose. He wasn't drawn by ideology, but by necessity. Their religious indoctrination came later, filling the void left by his shattered dreams with promises of cosmic justice. Now, standing amid the American revelers, he felt nothing but a detached sense of duty. He would become the instrument of retribution for countless Muslims who had suffered as he had, their pain transformed into America's pain. One of the men absently fingered the phone in his pocket, feeling its contours through the thin fabric, imagining the text that would soon illuminate its screen. Another silently mouthed prayers, his eyes taking in the laughing faces of the infidels surrounding him, memorizing their expressions of joy that would transform into masks of horror. The third ran his palm discreetly over the detonator sewn into his vest, verifying its position by touch alone. Kareem, the team leader at Casa Rio, mentally rehearsed the blast positioning his trainers had drilled into him at the camp outside Aleppo. Face the open doorway, maximum penetration, maximum casualties. A former engineering student, he understood the physics behind the directional nature of the blast. The restaurant's stone archway would channel the explosion inward like a funnel, magnifying its deadly effect on those packed inside. Behind him, a young couple with matching University of Texas shirts snapped photos, inadvertently capturing him in the background of what would be their last moments together. Unlike Hamza, Kareem had come to jihad through conviction rather than circumstance. The third son of a successful Saudi businessman, he had studied in London before becoming radicalized through online forums and campus Islamic societies. His father had cut him off financially when he abandoned his studies to travel to Syria, but Kareem had never regretted his choice. He saw himself as part of a lineage of warriors defending Islam against Western imperialism that stretched back to Saladin himself. Kareem had proven himself a natural leader in the training camps, his education and analytical mind earning him the respect of both commanders and fellow fighters. When Al-Hassid had personally selected him for this mission, Kareem had felt an overwhelming sense of honor. Now, as he surveyed the Americans enjoying their decadent pleasures, he felt only contempt mingled with a strange kind of pity. These people had no idea what was coming, not just tonight, but in the years ahead as the caliphate expanded its reach. They lived in a bubble of security and privilege that was about to be punctured forever. Time seems to stretch and compress simultaneously as they waited, their senses heightened, registering the scent of perfume from a passing woman, the laughter of children, the humid air against their faces, sensations they would never experience again. Each man stood apart yet connected by the invisible web of their shared purpose, waiting for the digital signal that would transform them from anonymous strangers into instruments of devastation. Nearby, Maria Vasquez, a 52-year-old grandmother who had worked as a waitress at Casa Rio for nearly 3 decades, noticed something odd about the man standing near the entrance. In her years serving tourists from around the world, she had developed an instinct for trouble. The belligerent drunk who would need cutting off, the couple about to have a public argument, the customer who would skip on the bill. This man, however, triggered something different. He stood too still, too focused in a space where everyone else was in constant motion, talking, laughing, shifting. For a moment, she considered mentioning it to Eduardo, the manager, but then a 6-top from Minnesota flagged her down for their check, and the slot slipped away as she returned to the rhythm of her work. The men's cell phones silently buzzed simultaneously at precisely 2100 hours, 9 o'clock, prompted by Al Ashball's text. Their Samsung burner phones, purchased with cash from different big box stores across the city, had been programmed to vibrate only, with all other notifications disabled. The simple technology had proven reliable in operations across 3 continents, requiring nothing more sophisticated than standard SMS capability. From his vantage point, Ashball could only see the group by the piano bar, but he would be able to see and hear the results from the more distant team. The text, which read Allahu Akbar, was read by the men. At Casa Rio, the team leader looked up from his phone and briefly caught the eye of another of his martyr brothers. He gave him a sad smile. The explosions were almost simultaneous, but no more than a fraction of a second separated the first and last. The initial concussive wave shattered glass and storefronts and sent ripples across the river's surface, temporarily drowning out all other sound in its thunderous roar. The blasts themselves were insufficient to critically injure those people more than several paces away from the men. However, the fact that their bodies shielded most of the explosive force of the thin rolls of C4 putty sewn into the vests secreted under their shirts would have saved most of the passerby and revelers. However, as instructed and trained at their camp outside Aleppo, one of the martyrs faced his body towards the front of the open doors of the restaurant and bars they were in front of, while the other two in each of the cells faced outward in opposite directions, up and downstream along the sidewalks that followed the river. The effects of the 207mm steel balls packed into each vest were instantaneous and nightmarish. Men, women, and children caught in the open as far as 300 meters away were shredded by the shrapnel. A young Air Force second lieutenant, celebrating his commission with his parents, took 3 steel balls to his face and neck, dropping him instantly into the river. A waitress carrying a tray of margaritas perforated through her abdomen, the colorful drinks shattering against the limestone walkway as she collapsed. A father instinctively shielded his 2 daughters, his back absorbing dozens of projectiles that would have struck them directly. Jim Hoffman had just lowered his glass when the explosion hit. He never heard the blast, just felt an odd pressure wave pass through his body before something hot punched through his chest. As he fell, his only thought was confusion, unable to process what was happening. Karen died instantly. Her head turned toward the blast at exactly the wrong second. 3 steel balls entered her left temple. Dylan, seated with his back to the blast, took multiple pieces of shrapnel to his spine but survived, paralyzed from the mid-chest down. Megan, who had bent down to retrieve her dropped napkin at the precise moment of detonation, emerged physically unscathed but psychologically shattered. The random geometry of the blast wave over her crouched form while claiming her family around her. Officers Salazar and Klein had reached the far end of their patrol route when the explosions rocked the Riverwalk. They dropped their bikes and immediately started sprinting back toward the blast zones, pulling their sidearms as they ran. They were unable to take their bicycles as the crowd was simply too dense and chaotic. They would be among the first responders on the scene, their bicycle patrol positioning them to reach the wounded before most of the city's emergency services could navigate the gridlocked downtown streets. The only respite for thousands of people in the blast area was the densely packed nature of the scene, with chance and fate dictating who was shielded by others' bodies and who took the brunt of the supersonic projectiles. The screams of the injured and the sounds of alarm set off by the explosions were the only audible sounds for several seconds after the blasts. None of the victims in the immediate vicinity could hear these things, though, as the concussions destroyed their eardrums. At ground zero, where the bombers had stood, nothing remained but red mist and fragments. The limestone layers were cratered and scorched in perfect circles, already filling with expanding pools of blood that formed in thin rivulets towards the river. Shards of bone embedded in nearby walls became indistinguishable from the deadly metal spheres that had been packed around them. The blast wave had knocked outdoor furniture into the river and shattered glass for 200 yards in every direction, creating secondary hazards of razor-sharp fragments.
All right, that was Sam Stone reading a sample chapter from Reaper, a Task Force Raven thriller. The book is available right now, so make sure you click that link in the show notes for the book and more for Sam, as well as his website, and you can learn more about what's coming from him soon. Don't forget to also click that link in the show notes for the Writers of Warrensburg event coming up, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out next time when I'm back with a new book, a new author, and an all-new sample chapter. Take care, everybody. See you soon.